Deep in a shadowed forest, a heart-wrenching scene unfolds. A desperate mother wolf, tangled and bound to an ancient tree, turns her pleading eyes toward her young cub. With a sorrowful cry, she begs, almost as if imploring the little one to come to her rescue and free her from the cruel entanglement. But just as hope glimmers in the baby's eyes, an unimaginable, heartbreaking twist is about to shatter everything. In the depths of an old whispering forest, where ancient trees stand as silent witnesses to the passage of time, nature can sometimes present us with scenes that both inspire and devastate. On a cool, misty morning, among the gnarled roots and dappled sunlight, a tragic tableau emerged. There, near the base of a towering oak, a mother wolf was caught in a cruel twist of fate. Thick stubborn vines and remnants of old frayed rope had ensnared her, binding her to the tree as if nature itself had turned against her. Her fur, a tapestry of grays and browns, shone dimly under the filtered light. But it was her eyes that captured every onlooker's heart, brimming with desperation, sorrow, and a raw, unspoken plea. In a voice almost inaudible above the rustle of leaves, she let out soft whimpers, her gaze fixated on a small cub standing hesitantly a few paces away. The young wolf, barely a few months old, seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. Its eyes, wide and innocent, reflected both fear and a burgeoning hope, as if it understood that its mother's suffering was not just a random misfortune, but a desperate cry for help. As the cub edged closer, the forest around them held a solemn silence. Every detail, the gnarled branches, the tangled bindings, the trembling of the mother wolf, spoke of nature's harsh cruelty juxtaposed with the tender bond of maternal love. Yet, even in this moment of heart-wrenching connection, an undercurrent of dread lingered. What if the cub, overwhelmed by fear or uncertainty, could not free its mother in time? What if, despite the instinctual drive to help, fate would prove too heavy a burden for such a fragile creature? This heartbreaking scene, captured in the gentle interplay of light and shadow, set the stage for a dramatic, emotional journey. It challenged the natural order and questioned whether the wild could ever be tamed by compassion, or if, in the relentless struggle for survival, even the most profound bonds would be tested beyond repair. Deep in the heart of an ancient forest, where the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the whisper of old leaves, a tragic scene unfolds that sets the stage for a poignant tale of love and loss. In a small clearing bathed in the soft glow of early morning light, an aged oak stands as a silent witness to nature's enduring cycle. Its sprawling branches are draped with moss, and its gnarled roots twist across the forest floor like time-worn ribbons. Beneath its towering canopy, a heart-wrenching tableau has taken shape. There, ensnared by a cruel twist of fate, is a mother wolf. Thick, entangling vines and remnants of frayed rope have wrapped around her powerful yet weary body, binding her to the ancient tree. Her fur, a tapestry of grays and browns weathered by countless seasons, is matted and uneven, and her eyes, once full of fierce determination and maternal pride, now glisten with pain and desperation. Every muscle in her frame seems tense with effort, as she struggles to free herself from the oppressive hold of nature's own traps, now compounded by man-made bindings. The tree, indifferent and unmoved, offers no aid, but instead serves as the silent monument to her suffering. Not far from the trapped mother, a small wolf cub, barely a few months old and trembling with a mix of fear and confusion, watches the unfolding tragedy. The cub's fur is soft and untarnished by hardship, and its eyes, wide with both innocence and a dawning sense of responsibility, reflect the stark reality of its environment. In the quiet of that forest clearing, the cub's small frame quivers as it stands uncertainly at a short distance, its instinct urging it to help, but its inexperience leaving it frozen in fear. The scene is charged with a raw emotional energy, the desperate pleas of the mother, the vulnerable gaze of the cub, and the ancient, indifferent strength of the tree all converge in a moment that seems to suspend time. The forest itself plays a silent, omnipresent role in this unfolding drama. Birds, startled by the commotion, take flight in a sudden burst of wings, their calls echoing a mournful lament. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves overhead, as if attempting to soothe the anguished cries of the mother wolf. Sunlight, filtered through the thick canopy, casts long dappled shadows on the scene, highlighting the stark contrast between the beauty of the natural world and the brutality of the situation. Every sound, the creak of the old tree, the soft whimpers of the ensnared wolf, the timid sniffing of the cub, melds into a melancholic symphony of nature caught in a moment of profound distress. As minutes stretch into an agonizing eternity, the cub's internal conflict becomes ever more apparent. Driven by an instinctive need to protect and care for its mother, yet overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, the young wolf hesitates. It edges closer, each tentative step fraught with uncertainty, its ears flicking at every rustle in the underbrush. The cub's gaze is fixed on its mother, searching for a sign, a glimmer of hope, or even a silent command. Yet too, the bindings that hold the mother wolf are not easily broken. They are thick and unyielding, a cruel metaphor for the constraints that the wild can impose on even the most determined hearts. In the background, unseen by the distressed pair, the forest continues its ancient rituals. A small stream babbles gently nearby, its waters reflecting the quiet sorrow of the scene. In the distance, the muted calls of other wolves hint at the existence of a larger pack, witnesses to this tragedy, perhaps unaware of the suffering unfolding in their midst. The natural world, in all its majestic beauty, seems to both empathize with and stand aloof from the plight of the ensnared mother. The initial challenges are stark and immediate. The mother wolf's bindings are too tightly wound, and the vines, having grown thick with age, offer little chance of easy release. The cub, though filled with a desperate urge to help, lacks the strength and knowledge to untangle the cruel knots. The situation demands more than instinct. It requires intervention. Yet the forest, governed by its own rules, provides no natural remedy. Instead, the scene lays bare the raw interplay of nature's fragility and resilience, and the delicate balance between care and survival. This poignant moment, set against the backdrop of an ancient forest, lays the foundation for a deeply emotional journey. It is a tale that challenges the limits of natural instinct, the responsibilities of kinship, and the enduring power of maternal love. As the early light grows stronger and the forest awakens around them, the trapped mother wolf and her hesitant cub stand as living symbols of the struggle for survival, a struggle where every moment is a test of will, every breath a testament to the hope that even the smallest act of compassion can kindle the possibility of freedom. In the fragile silence that followed the heartbreaking tableau, the little cub, whom the forest seemed to call Hope, was left standing, torn between instinct and an overwhelming desire to help. The once tranquil clearing now pulsed with a quiet urgency as the early morning light began to break through the dense canopy. Shadows danced around the gnarled roots of the ancient oak, and every rustle of the wind seemed to echo the mother wolf's desperate whimpers. With her limbs bound by relentless vines and frayed rope, the mother wolf's eyes pleaded silently for salvation. Yet, the task before the baby was daunting and filled with uncertainty. Hope's small heart pounded in her chest as she edged closer to her suffering mother. Every tentative step was a battle against instinctive fear. The world around her, so vast and unforgiving, now seemed both a potential savior and a constant threat. The cub's delicate paws, still soft from youth, made little impressions in the damp earth as it approached the heavy bindings that held its mother captive. It was an act that defied nature itself, a plea for love and help in a place where survival often meant leaving weakness behind. As Hope drew near, the mother wolf's eyes shone with a mixture of gratitude and despair. In a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the mother lowered her head, her muzzle trembling as she let out a weak, pained whimper that conveyed both sorrow and a glimmer of hope. The sight of her suffering stirred something deep within the cub, a recognition that this was not merely a test of survival, but an intimate plea to mend a broken bond. The cub's first attempt was clumsy and uncertain. With a delicate snarl that betrayed both determination and fear, Hope began to tug at one of the thick vines with her small, sharp teeth. The rope, old and resilient, resisted the effort. Each tug brought with it a jolt of pain, not just to the binding, but also to the cub's fragile resolve. The sound of the rope straining against the force of her bite was almost drowned out by the ambient whispers of the forest, a chorus of rustling leaves and distant bird calls that seemed to lament the cruel fate of the suffering mother. Nearby, the forest continued its slow, natural rhythm, indifferent yet somehow intertwined with the drama unfolding beneath its ancient boughs. A squirrel chattered nervously in a nearby tree, and a family of deer paused to listen, their eyes wide as if they too sensed the emotional gravity of the moment. Even the wind, which had once carried the playful scents of wildflowers, now seemed to moan softly, echoing the sorrow of the mother wolf. Time appeared to slow as the cub's efforts grew more desperate. Hope alternated between tugging at the binding and recoiling in shock, her small frame trembling with every strain of the rope. The physical struggle was matched by an emotional turmoil, a silent battle between the cub's instinct to flee from danger and its profound need to help the one it loved. Each moment of resistance, every failed attempt to break free the ropes, was accompanied by a flash of tearful determination in the cub's eyes. It was a scene that transcended the ordinary. Nature's cruelty was momentarily softened by a raw, unfiltered expression of familial love. In that delicate struggle, an unexpected visitor emerged. Hidden among the underbrush, a wounded elderly crow watched with keen, knowing eyes. The bird, whose life in the forest had been marked by its own battles for survival, fluttered closer. In a moment that seemed almost orchestrated by fate, the crow landed on a low branch near the mother wolf, its head tilted as if observing the desperate scene below. The sight of this solitary witness added another layer of quiet melancholy to the unfolding drama. For reasons unknown, the crow's presence seemed to encourage hope, its silent vigil a reminder that the natural world, in all its raw emotion, was united in its suffering and its resilience. Encouraged by the crow's silent companionship, the cub gathered a bit more courage. With renewed determination, Hope tried again. This time she managed to loosen one of the thinner strands that bound her mother's leg. The small victory, though minor in the grand scope of her mother's bindings, ignited a surge of hope within the little wolf. The mother wolf responded with a faint, grateful whimper that seemed to convey a silent thank you, and for a fleeting moment, a spark of connection passed between them. Yet, as the cub celebrated this small win, a shadow fell across the clearing. A distant rumble of engines and the murmur of approaching footsteps, hinting that human presence was near. The sudden intrusion of potential help or further threat cast a new layer of complexity over the scene. The cub froze, torn between continuing its desperate struggle and fleeing to safety. The forest, with its ancient wisdom, now held its breath once more, and every rustle of leaves seemed to question, would this act of familial devotion be interrupted by forces beyond its control? The cub's heart pounded louder as the sounds of human voices grew nearer, blending with the murmurs of the forest and the faint sighs of the wind. In that charged moment, Hope was forced to make an agonizing decision: risk everything to try to free her mother, or retreat to the relative safety of the forest shadows. It was a choice laden with the raw emotion of survival and the profound, unyielding bond of maternal love. This delicate interplay of instinct, emotion, and external interference set the stage for a profound transformation in the dynamics of the forest and the hearts of all who witnessed it. The cub's struggle, though fraught with difficulty and marked by repeated setbacks, was a testament to the enduring power of hope and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. Even as the human voices and distant sounds of machinery signaled that the world outside the forest sanctuary was encroaching ever closer, the determination in the little wolf's eyes spoke of a promise that even the smallest act of love could defy the harshest fate. As Hope continued her desperate struggle to free her mother from the cruel bonds that tied her to the ancient tree, an eerie transformation began to take shape, one that would shatter every assumption about the nature of this tragic scene. In the midst of the cub's determined yet clumsy tugging at the thick vines, a subtle glow started to emanate from the very bindings that held the mother wolf captive. At first, it was nothing more than a faint luminescence, barely perceptible against the dim light of the early morning forest. But with each tug and every strained breath from the suffering mother, the glow intensified, revealing delicate, almost ethereal patterns etched along the fibers of the vines and rope. As the light grew stronger, the markings became unmistakable, ancient symbols, mysterious and arcane, intertwined with the natural growth of the vines. These symbols, reminiscent of forgotten runes and sacred sigils, spoke of an age-old pact, a curse or a ritual perhaps, designed not merely to bind a creature, but to harness its innate power. In that moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Hope's eyes, wide with both fear and sudden understanding, fixed upon her mother, whose gaze now shone with a mixture of pain and a strange, otherworldly light. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the mother wolf's features began to change. The sorrow etched into her face deepened, and her eyes, which had long reflected the quiet anguish of captivity, now glimmered with the memories of a distant, noble past. In a voice that transcended the limitations of sound, a voice that seemed to echo directly in Hope's mind, the mother began to communicate. "My child," the voice resonated, laden with centuries of grief and forgotten honor, "I was once the guardian of this forest, a spirit of protection and wild wisdom. But betrayal and greed cast a shadow upon my soul, and I was bound to this tree as punishment. These bindings are not mere vines. They are the remnants of a curse, woven by those who sought to steal our power." The revelation hit Hope like a tidal wave. The cub's heart pounded not only with fear, but also with a dawning sorrow and awe. Her mother, the fierce, untamed creature she had always known, had once been something greater, a guardian whose duty was to safeguard the balance of the forest. The curse, the voice explained, was inflicted long ago by a vengeful force, either a corrupt human sorcerer driven by greed or a wrathful spirit of the land who desired to control the wild's mystical energy for his own gain. Now those ancient bonds glowed with the power of that dark magic, a visible chain that had slowly sapped the mother wolf's strength over countless seasons. As the mystical light pulsed along the bindings, images and fragmented memories began to flash in Hope's mind. She saw visions of her mother running freely through the forest, her coat radiant and her eyes alight with purpose. She saw a time when the forest thrived under her protection, a time of harmonious balance between the wild and the human, when nature's secrets were respected and revered. But then came the betrayal, shadowy figures, cloaked in human greed, seizing the opportunity to harness the forest's magic. In a cruel twist of fate, they cast a curse that would tether the guardian to a single, unyielding tree, stripping her of her freedom and leaving her to suffer for generations. The revelation was a turning point that transformed the nature of the cub's struggle. No longer was Hope merely trying to free her mother from physical bindings. She was now burdened with the legacy of an ancient curse and the desperate need to restore what had been lost. The sorrow in her mother's eyes deepened into a silent plea, a message that reached out to Hope's very soul. "Break the curse, my child. Find the key that will release me, so that the balance of the forest may be restored." As these profound words echoed in the clearing, the forest itself seemed to respond. The light from the enchanted bindings flickered in rhythm with the rustle of leaves, as if the ancient trees were offering their own silent counsel. The atmosphere grew charged with an indescribable mixture of dread and hope, a promise that, even in the depths of suffering, redemption might be possible. For the human onlookers, hidden among the trees and capturing every moment on their cameras, the revelation was as shocking as it was moving. They had come to witness a disruption of the natural order, but now they found themselves privy to a secret legacy, a story of guardianship, betrayal, and the enduring power of nature's own justice. Whispers spread rapidly. The mother wolf was not just a victim of misfortune, but a once revered guardian cursed by human avarice. The courtroom of nature had been thrown into upheaval, and every person present felt the weight of centuries of suppressed truth. In that charged moment, as the mystical glow of the bindings bathed the clearing in ethereal light, Hope's resolve solidified. The little cub, now imbued with the understanding of her mother's tragic past and the magnitude of the curse that bound her, felt an overwhelming duty to act. She would need to embark on a quest, one fraught with peril and uncertainty, to find the key to break the curse and restore her mother's freedom. This revelation, heartbreaking and monumental, transformed the narrative. It was no longer just a desperate struggle for survival, but the beginning of an epic journey to reclaim a lost legacy and to restore balance to the forest. In the eerie, softened light of dawn, as the mystical glow from the enchanted bindings bathed the clearing, in an ethereal radiance, the reactions of those present, both in the animal kingdom and within the heart of the family, began to shift in unexpected ways. The revelation that the mother wolf was once a guardian of the forest, cursed by betrayal and bound to the ancient oak, struck a chord deep within the very core of her being. Her once desperate eyes now shimmered with a blend of sorrow and a faint, rekindled hope. A silent message meant for her little cub. Hope. For Hope, the tiny wolf pup who had long watched her mother struggle in vain against the unyielding vines, the revelation was a tumult of conflicting emotions. The shock of hearing her mother's ethereal voice, one that echoed memories of a noble past, was overwhelming. Initially, the cub's eyes widened with confusion. She had known her mother only as a creature of instinct and suffering. Now, faced with the truth that her mother had once been a proud guardian, Hope's heart trembled with both admiration and the crushing weight of responsibility. Her instinctive desire to help was now transformed into a deeper, more complex mission, to break the ancient curse and restore the freedom of the one she loved. In that fragile moment, as the supernatural light pulsed softly along the ancient bindings, Hope's small frame quivered. A wave of determination overtook her initial fear. The revelation that her mother was not merely a victim of cruel fate, but a fallen protector, ignited a spark within the cub, a call to honor a legacy that had been denied for too long. With a tentative yet resolute expression, Hope began to nudge at the bindings again, her jaws working with newfound purpose. Each tug was laden with a mix of hope and desperation, as if the cub's very will could somehow channel the lost power of her mother's past. Her eyes shone with silent tears, reflecting both the pain of witnessing such suffering and the fierce, unyielding love that spurred her to act. The mother wolf, bound and weary, responded to her cub's efforts with a profound mix of gratitude and regret. Her eyes, now deep wells of ancient sorrow, flickered with memories of the days when she roamed free and reigned as the forest's protector. In between ragged breaths, she conveyed her story, a tale of honor turned to despair, of a promise broken by the greed of those who sought to control nature's power. Though physically weakened by the curse, her spirit reached out tenderly to Hope, whispering in a language older than words, urging her to find the key to liberation. This silent exchange, of pain, regret, and an enduring maternal bond, filled the clearing with a weighty, almost sacred energy. Nearby, the natural world reacted in its own subtle ways. A solitary crow, its eyes reflecting a lifetime of silent observation, landed on a low branch of the ancient oak. Its presence, somber yet dignified, seemed to acknowledge the deep sorrow of the scene. The crow's soft call, barely audible, was like a gentle reminder that all living beings in the forest were interconnected in their struggles and triumphs. The rustling of leaves and the gentle sigh of the wind through the boughs of the oak added to the atmosphere, a quiet, natural chorus that mourned the loss of freedom and celebrated the undying hope that flickered in the eyes of a determined cub. At Emily's home, a place that had already become a refuge for rescued wildlife, the family was slowly coming to terms with the extraordinary events. Emily, whose initial instinct had been to offer shelter and solace, now found herself grappling with the profound implications of the revelation. Late at night, in the quiet solitude of their living room, she reviewed the old photographs and letters from her family's past. The discovery of her grandmother's account of a similar rescue long ago, where a wild animal had been seen as a guardian of the land, sparked a quiet epiphany. Emily began to see the current tragedy not just as an isolated misfortune, but as a part of a long lineage of natural guardianship that was being lost to time and exploitation. In hushed conversations with her husband, she admitted, "I always believed we were simply caretakers, but now I see that our role is much deeper, a connection to an ancient legacy that we must preserve." Her husband, initially skeptical of the emotional pull of folklore, now found his heart softened by the palpable bond he observed between Hope and her suffering mother. Over dinner, as the family discussed the day's events with a mix of concern and wonder, he expressed a cautious optimism. "Perhaps this is a call for us to look at the wild with new eyes," he mused. "Maybe we're meant to be more than mere bystanders. We might be the key to restoring something sacred that has been forgotten." The children, too, felt the gravity of the situation. Their once simple curiosity about the wild had blossomed into a deep, empathetic understanding. In drawing sessions at school and quietly, reflective conversations at home, they shared their feelings about the mother's plight and the mysterious, magical glow that had appeared. Their innocent questions, "Why is Mommy hurting? And can we help her be free?" brought a human tenderness to the stark realities of the forest. As the day wore on and the mystical glow gradually faded, every member of the community was left to wrestle with the revelation. The scene at the oak tree, with its intertwining of ancient curse and raw maternal love, had irrevocably altered their understanding of the natural world. It was no longer enough to simply rescue a wild creature from physical peril. The true challenge lay in healing the deep, invisible wounds inflicted by time, greed, and forgotten promises. In that reflective silence, the forest seemed to whisper its own hope, a promise that even in the darkest hours, the spirit of the wild endures. And in that promise, hope's determined eyes shone brightly, a beacon of resolve that signified not only her desire to free her mother, but also the beginning of a quest to reclaim a lost legacy and restore the balance of the ancient woods. As the heart-wrenching struggle between the mother wolf and her determined cub unfolded beneath the ancient oak, new layers of complexity began to emerge that would complicate their quest for freedom and underscore the fragility of life in the wild. What had once been a solitary moment of maternal despair and youthful hope now revealed a network of interconnected challenges, both in the natural world and in the human sphere, that threatened to upend the delicate balance of the forest. One emerging subplot involved the discovery of a series of mysterious carvings on the bark of the ancient oak itself. As local wildlife experts and historians examined the tree more closely, they found that its weathered surface was etched with symbols and runes that seemed to predate any known language. These archaic markings suggested that the tree was not just a silent witness to the mother wolf's suffering, but a relic of a time when the forest was believed to be imbued with mystical powers. Some local elders recalled legends of a sacred tree that once served as a conduit between the natural and spiritual realms, a tree whose blessings could protect and even heal the creatures of the wild. The presence of these symbols hinted at a deeper, almost fated connection between the mother wolf's plight and the ancient lore of the land, raising the question of whether her curse and her desperate entanglement was part of a larger cosmic balance that had been disturbed by modern encroachments. At the same time, local environmental groups began to mobilize. News of the tragic scene spread quickly through community forums and social media under hashtags like Sacred Wild and Forest Legacy. Activists argued that the incident was symptomatic of a broader environmental crisis, a direct result of decades of habitat destruction and the relentless pressure of industrial expansion. One activist, Yud's Carmen, organized a series of public meetings where she presented data linking recent deforestation and illegal logging activities to a rise in similar disturbances throughout the forest. When the balance of nature is disrupted, she asserted passionately, we see these tragedies not as isolated incidents, but as the inevitable backlash of a wounded ecosystem. Her arguments resonated with many in the community, adding urgency to calls for stricter environmental protections and a re-examination of local industrial policies. Simultaneously, the digital world began to echo the unfolding drama. Anonymous posts and viral videos flooded social media, many of which speculated about the curse that had supposedly befallen the once revered guardian of the forest. Online communities debated whether the bindings on the mother wolf were a natural consequence of her struggle or a manifestation of an ancient spell gone awry. One widely shared video, captured by a local hiker, showed the soft glow of the enchanted bindings flickering intermittently, an image that some interpreted as a sign that nature itself was trying to communicate a hidden message. These digital discussions connected the personal tragedy of the wolf family to larger themes of conservation and cultural heritage, drawing in voices from environmentalists, folklore enthusiasts, and even skeptics who questioned whether such mystical interpretations could have any basis in reality. Adding to the tension was the intervention of local authorities, who had been alerted by both concerned citizens and mounting digital evidence. A team of wildlife rescue experts and law enforcement officers arrived in the area, their presence introducing a new dynamic to the unfolding events. While their primary goal was to ensure that the mother wolf and her cub were safe, their arrival sparked heated debates about the appropriate level of human intervention in nature's affairs. Some argued that any rescue operation should be minimally invasive to preserve the natural order, while others insisted that urgent action was required to break the chains, both literal and metaphorical, that bound the guardian of the forest. This divergence of opinion among professionals further complicated the situation, as local officials found themselves caught between the need to act swiftly and the imperative to respect the ancient rhythms of the wild. Meanwhile, personal stakes in the story were growing ever more significant. Emily, who had previously opened her home as a refuge for rescued animals, felt a profound responsibility to honor the legacy of the forest. Late one night, as she pored over old family letters and photographs, Emily discovered a faded account from her grandmother describing a similar event, a wild animal, once considered a sacred guardian, that had been rescued under extraordinary circumstances. This revelation not only connected her family's past to the present crisis, but also deepened her conviction that their act of kindness was part of a long-forgotten tradition. With renewed determination, Emily began organizing community storytelling sessions, where residents were invited to share their personal encounters with nature and explore the possibility that the forest held secrets waiting to be rediscovered. In a parallel subplot, Jack, the hiker and documentarian who had captured every poignant moment, received a series of cryptic messages via email from someone signing off as the Guardian. These messages spoke in poetic terms about the forest's hidden legacy, urging him to seek out a legendary artifact said to be buried near the sacred oak, a key, perhaps, to breaking the curse that had shackled the mother wolf. The correspondence, laden with metaphor and mystery, began to draw Jack deeper into the investigation, blurring the lines between scientific inquiry and mythic quest. His journey was no longer just about freeing a captive creature. It had become an expedition to reclaim a lost heritage and restore the natural order that had been so violently disturbed. These interconnected subplots, ranging from ancient runes and digital debates to personal family histories and mysterious messages, wove together to form a rich tapestry of intrigue and emotional complexity. They revealed that the plight of the mother wolf and her cub was not an isolated tragedy, but a microcosm of a much larger struggle, the battle between ancient, sacred forces and modern exploitation. Each new thread added depth to the narrative, challenging the community to consider how far they were willing to go to restore balance in the forest. In the hours following the startling revelation of the curse and the mystical bindings, the atmosphere in the clearing grew heavy with conflicting emotions. The ancient oak stood as a silent witness to a scene that was both otherworldly and heartbreakingly real. The mother wolf, still bound by enchanted vines, exuded a deep sorrow that mingled with the fading light, a sorrow that was not only physical but also spiritual. Her eyes, now illuminated with the burden of lost glory and betrayed legacy, seemed to plead for something beyond simple rescue. Meanwhile, the young cub, Hope, oscillated between a raw instinct to flee and a profound desire to help. The emotional weight of the moment bore down on every creature present, setting the stage for an intricate web of internal conflict and external challenges. For the mother wolf, the curse was more than a physical restraint. It was a chain that tethered her to a past filled with honor and a future mired in despair. As she struggled against the thick vines, every strained movement was a visible testament to a legacy she longed to reclaim. Her eyes flickered with memories of a time when she roamed free, protecting the forest and nurturing a balance between nature and mankind. Yet, that same gaze now held a profound resignation, an acceptance that her suffering was the price of a betrayal by forces that had once revered her. This internal battle was visible in the subtle tremors of her muzzle and the deep, resonant whimpers that punctuated the silence. Her pain was both a personal lament and a symbolic echo of nature's wounded spirit. Hope, the cub, found herself thrust into an emotional maelstrom. Having only known her mother as a figure of both fierce love and inexplicable sorrow, the revelations of her true past left the young pup confused and conflicted. The cub's heart raced with a cocktail of emotions, fear of the unknown, anger at the injustice, and a burgeoning determination to free her mother from the ancient curse. Each attempt to tug at the bindings was met with a mix of hope and trepidation. The cub's small form, so full of raw potential, wavered as it faced the overwhelming force of both nature and a cruel, arcane fate. Every tug and pull was not just a physical act, but a symbolic defiance against the darkness that had stolen her mother's freedom. Outside the immediate circle of the wolf duo, a cadre of human onlookers, local wildlife experts, conservationists, and even a few intrigued passers-by watched the unfolding drama with bated breath. Among them, Jack, the dedicated documentarian, recorded every detail with a heavy heart. His eyes, which had seen countless wonders in the wild, now brimmed with empathy and a deep-seated urgency. "There's a profound sadness in these eyes," he later noted in his journal, "as if they carry the weight of centuries of forgotten honor." Jack's internal struggle mirrored that of the community, a battle between the desire to intervene and the fear of disrupting the fragile equilibrium of nature. Local conservationist Dr. Elena Morales, who had been tracking environmental changes in the area, expressed her concern over the emerging pattern. In a hushed conversation with other experts, she remarked, "This isn't merely an isolated case of misfortune. It's a cry for help from the very heart of the forest. The curse on this wolf, this bound guardian, is a symbol of the exploitation and neglect that has plagued these lands for far too long." Her words, though clinical, resonated with a deep, underlying melancholy, a reminder that nature's wounds are often invisible and slow to heal, yet infinitely painful. Within Emily's household, where the family had long embraced their role as caretakers of rescued wildlife, the emotional dilemmas were deeply personal. Emily sat with her husband in the quiet of the evening, reflecting on the significance of the mystical events. "I feel as if our home is not just a shelter," she murmured, "but a bridge between our world and the ancient past of this forest. This curse, it's a wound that runs deeper than any we've seen. How do we even begin to heal something so old?" Her husband, whose practical nature often clashed with her idealism, struggled to reconcile his concerns for safety with the overwhelming call to preserve what he now saw as a sacred legacy. Their conversation was tender and conflicted, a microcosm of the larger debate that gripped the community. Social media channels, always a barometer of collective sentiment, erupted with posts reflecting this inner turmoil. Hashtags like Meeching Break the Curse and Wild Legacy trended locally, with users sharing personal stories of loss and hope intertwined with the mysterious events. Some users expressed a belief that the incident was a divine signal, a call to return to the old ways of honoring the wild, while others warned that such emotional interpretations might lead to dangerous oversimplifications of nature's complexities. These online debates added another layer of tension, merging modern technology's immediacy with timeless questions of morality and survival. In that moment, every actor in this unfolding drama, whether beast or human, was caught in a web of internal conflicts and external pressures. The mother wolf's silent plea for liberation, the cub's trembling resolve, and the community's growing desire to intervene all converged into a potent, multifaceted struggle. This was not just a fight for freedom from physical bonds, but a battle against a legacy of exploitation and a call to restore the natural order that had once been governed by ancient wisdom and deep, unspoken bonds. As dusk crept in and the forest's colors deepened into twilight, the complex interplay of emotion and duty left no one untouched. The weight of the curse, the memory of past guardianship, and the urgent need for compassionate intervention all coalesced into a single, poignant question. How far are we willing to go to reclaim a lost legacy and restore balance to the wild? And in that question lay the promise of transformation, a promise that even the most harrowing circumstances could give birth to hope. As dusk deepened into a velvety twilight, an unsettling energy began to permeate the forest clearing, where the mother wolf remained bound to the ancient oak. The mystic glow from the enchanted bindings had subsided to a gentle shimmer, but with it came an escalating tension that hinted at far more than a mere curse. It suggested that the very fabric of the forest held deeper secrets waiting to be unveiled. In the quiet moments after the revelation of the curse, As Hope's determined eyes burned with resolve, an inexplicable phenomenon began to occur. The ancient oak, long a silent witness to the cycle of life and sorrow, started to exhibit strange behavior. Its leaves, previously lush and vibrant, began to shimmer with an eerie silver light. Vines around its trunk pulsed slowly, as if infused with a latent energy that was neither wholly benevolent nor entirely sinister. Local wildlife experts who had been discreetly monitoring the area later described the tree's behavior as a call from the past, a sign that the curse might be linked to an ancient, almost forgotten ritual meant to harness the wild's untamed spirit. Simultaneously, Jack Cha, who had been meticulously documenting every nuance of the unfolding tragedy, discovered another cryptic detail hidden within his earlier photographs. In one shot, barely visible in the interplay of shadow and light, a small carved symbol was etched into the bark of the oak, a symbol that mirrored the runes now glowing faintly on the enchanted bindings. This unexpected echo between the tree's ancient markings and the magical bindings suggested a deeper connection between the curse and the natural history of the forest. Jack's discovery stirred his curiosity further, and he began to suspect that the key to breaking the curse might lie hidden within the very tree that had inadvertently become a prison for the mother wolf. Around the same time, the digital sphere exploded with fresh, mysterious posts. Anonymous users began sharing images and video clips of similar enchanted symbols appearing on trees in other parts of the forest, along with whispered claims of guardians who had once roamed these woods. Hashtags like Mong Sacred Oak and Non Ancient Bond trended locally, igniting heated debates among environmental enthusiasts and folklore aficionados. Some believed these signs were omens of an ancient magic, a protective force that had been disrupted by modern exploitation. Others argued that the symbols might be linked to clandestine rituals performed by secretive groups with a vested interest in controlling the natural world. This influx of digital evidence added a modern layer of intrigue to the age-old mystery, suggesting that the curse was not merely a natural misfortune, but part of a larger, orchestrated design. In a surprising twist, during one of her nightly vigils, Emily observed a soft, rhythmic chanting carried by the wind. Drawn by the haunting melody, she followed the sound to a secluded glen where, under the pale light of the moon, a small group of figures clad in tattered robes appeared to be performing a ritual. Their voices blended with the rustling leaves in a chant that spoke of balance, retribution, and redemption. Though she could barely discern their words, Emily sensed that this clandestine ritual might hold the ancient knowledge needed to break the curse. The figures vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind only the echo of their incantations and a renewed sense of urgency among those who witnessed the phenomenon. Rumors began to circulate that these were the descendants of the forest's original guardians, keepers of a secret legacy that could unlock the key to liberating the mother wolf. Further complicating matters, local authorities received an anonymous tip indicating that a private collector, rumored to be fascinated by mystical artifacts, had recently acquired an ancient relic said to be linked to the sacred powers of the forest. The tip mentioned that this relic, a weathered amulet bearing the same mysterious symbol as seen on the oak's bark, was in the possession of a reclusive figure known only as the Curator. The news sent ripples through the community, igniting speculation that this relic might be the missing piece needed to break the curse, or perhaps to amplify the forest's protective magic. The prospect of a hidden artifact added another dimension to the already convoluted narrative, a tantalizing clue that promised to bridge the gap between myth and reality. Meanwhile, on the digital front, discussions flourished as a series of live-streamed videos from the forest showed inexplicable, pulsating lights weaving through the treetops, as if the forest itself were trying to communicate its ancient secrets. These events deepened the intrigue and elevated the tension among both skeptics and believers, with many insisting that the natural world was sending urgent signals that humanity could no longer afford to ignore. As the various threads converged, the stakes of the situation became increasingly clear. The mother wolf's plight was now entwined with an ancient legacy of guardian magic, clandestine rituals, and hidden relics, a puzzle that spanned centuries and defied the boundaries of the modern world. The tension was no longer solely about freeing one trapped creature. It was a call to restore a disrupted balance in the forest, to honor its sacred past, and to confront the exploitation that had fractured the natural order. In that charged atmosphere, Hope, the little cub, stood resolute, her eyes reflecting both the newfound revelations and the daunting challenges ahead. The revelation of the ancient symbols, the appearance of mysterious figures, and the cryptic digital messages had all served to elevate the stakes from a simple rescue to a profound quest for redemption and restoration. The forest, with its ancient trees and hidden secrets, had become the battleground for a timeless struggle. A struggle between the forces of exploitation and the enduring mystical power of nature. In the days that followed the miraculous revelation of the ancient curse and the desperate plea of the mother wolf, new layers of intrigue and interconnected subplots began to weave their way into the fabric of the unfolding drama. The tragic scene of the mother wolf, bound by enchanted vines and tied to the ancient oak, and the determined cub, Hope, had sparked far more than a simple rescue mission. It had ignited a community-wide awakening to an ancient legacy and a hidden battle for the forest's soul. Local environmental activists, already galvanized by the initial spectacle, started to uncover clues that pointed to a long history of mysterious events in the region. At one of the community meetings, Carmen, a passionate advocate for the wild, presented a series of old photographs and documents she had painstakingly collected from local archives. These records detailed similar incidents from decades ago, when a revered guardian of the forest was said to have been cursed by greed and betrayal. Our ancestors spoke of a sacred tree that bound the spirit of a protector until the curse was broken by a brave heart, Carmen explained, her voice quivering with both sorrow and hope. Her findings not only connected the current tragedy to a forgotten past, but also lent an almost mythic dimension to the mother wolf's plight. Around the same time, digital whispers began circulating on social media under hashtags like Guardian Curse and Wild Legacy. A group of local bloggers and wildlife photographers started a collaborative project to map out the locations of mysterious ancient symbols that had been appearing on trees throughout the forest. One particularly striking image captured a faded rune-like inscription on a massive birch, its design mirroring the symbols now glowing faintly on the enchanted bindings. These online discussions rapidly attracted attention from both folklore enthusiasts and environmental scientists, who debated whether these ancient markings were signs of a protective ritual or a curse imposed by those who once sought to control the forest's magic. In the midst of this digital and archival exploration, Emily found herself drawn deeper into the mystery. Her own family's legacy, once a quiet undercurrent in her life, now surged to the forefront. Late one evening, while sifting through a box of her grandmother's belongings, Emily discovered an old leather-bound journal. Its pages, yellowed with time, contained detailed accounts of her grandmother's encounters with the wild, a narrative of compassion, of rescuing injured animals, and of moments when nature seemed to speak in mysterious ways. One entry in particular described a similar incident, a once mighty guardian of the forest who was bound by mystical forces until a brave cub unlocked the secret of its bindings. This discovery resonated deeply with Emily, reinforcing her belief that their involvement was part of a much larger, almost sacred, mission. She began to organize informal gatherings at her home, inviting community members to share their stories of unexpected encounters with nature and to discuss the possibility that the forest held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Simultaneously, Jack, the intrepid hiker and documentarian who had captured every moment of the initial tragedy, received a series of cryptic messages via email from someone signing off as the Guardian. These messages were poetic and enigmatic, hinting at a hidden key to breaking the curse. One message read, "In the glade where the old river meets the silent oak, the key lies hidden beneath the stones that remember." Jack's curiosity was ignited. He began cross-referencing these clues with the maps and archival data he had collected. The possibility that a tangible artifact, an ancient relic imbued with the forest's forgotten magic, could be the key to freeing the mother wolf transformed his role from mere observer to active seeker of truth. His latest blog posts, filled with evocative descriptions and blurred photographs of moss-covered stones in a secluded glen, quickly amassed a following among local history buffs and environmentalists. Local law enforcement, spurred by the mounting evidence and the fervor of digital activism, initiated an internal review of the courthouse's security protocols and the nearby industrial activities. Rumors circulated that certain corporate entities had been secretly monitoring the forest, using sophisticated technology to track wildlife movements for their own profit. These allegations, once considered fringe theories, were gradually gaining credibility as more digital evidence surfaced. During a public forum, one security officer recounted how unusual gaps in surveillance footage coincided with the appearance of these mysterious ancient symbols on trees. "It's as if someone didn't want these secrets to be seen," he said, his voice filled with an undercurrent of fear and defiance. This development added a new, unsettling twist to the narrative, suggesting that powerful interests might be involved in perpetuating the curse. At a community workshop organized by the local environmental group, voices of traditional wisdom mingled with modern scientific insights. Elders recounted stories of guardian animals from times when the forest was in perfect harmony with its people, while young conservationists presented satellite images and environmental data linking recent industrial encroachments to the increased frequency of mystical phenomena in the woods. The dialogue was both passionate and nuanced, as participants debated whether the current crisis was a direct result of human greed or a natural cyclical response to disruption. In this melting pot of digital activism, historical records, and personal revelations, the plight of the mother wolf and the determined resolve of hope emerged as powerful symbols of a broader struggle. The community, now more than ever, was compelled to consider how ancient legacies, modern exploitation, and the unyielding force of nature converged in a single, heartbreaking moment. The interwoven subplots, from the mysterious carvings on the sacred oak and the cryptic messages from the Guardian to Emily's rediscovered family lore, formed a tapestry of intrigue that challenged everyone to rethink their relationship with the wild. Each new thread, whether a faded journal entry or a grainy video clip of shadowy figures near logging roads, reinforced the idea that the forest was a living entity with a history of both beauty and betrayal. The subplots not only added depth to the central narrative, but also connected the personal stories of individuals like Emily and Jack to the larger environmental crisis facing the community. The fate of the abandoned wolves and the ancient curse that bound their guardian had become a rallying cry, a call to restore balance, honor forgotten legacies, and confront the exploitation that threatened the very soul of the forest. As the first light of dawn struggled to break through the heavy canopy, a palpable tension gripped the forest clearing where the mother wolf remained bound to the ancient oak. The mystical glow of the enchanted vines had dimmed to a soft shimmer, but the revelations of the curse and the long-forgotten legacy now hung over the scene like a dark omen. The conflicts that had been simmering between nature's brutal reality and the hope of redemption, between ancient magic and modern exploitation, were about to come to a head. In that fraught moment, Hope, the young cub, stood trembling beside her suffering mother. The weight of her newfound knowledge, of her mother's noble past as a guardian of the forest and of the curse that now held her captive, pressed down on her small heart. Every failed tug at the bindings, every tentative pull with her tiny teeth, resonated with the urgency of a promise yet unfulfilled. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Even the soft rustle of leaves was muted, as if nature itself was aware that the turning point had arrived. Around the clearing, subtle signs of change began to appear. The ancient oak's bark, previously marked by cryptic runes and symbols, started to pulse in rhythm with the fading light. The patterns on the vines, now illuminated by that ethereal glow, appeared to shift and ripple like a living script, a silent communication from the forest's deep past. These phenomena stirred a growing realization in Hope. The curse was not a static, unchangeable force, but a dynamic wound in the fabric of the wild, one that might be healed if the right key could be found. At the same time, the voices of the human community, already stirred by the earlier digital outpourings and community meetings, began to crescendo into a unified call for action. Environmental activists, local historians, and even skeptical officials had gathered in hushed clusters near the edge of the forest, discussing the implications of the recent discoveries. A prominent local activist declared, "This is not just about one mother wolf's suffering. It's a symbol of how our entire forest is being exploited and forgotten. We must act now before the curse tightens its grip forever." Her words echoed through the corridors of community halls and online forums alike, drawing a line in the sand between inaction and decisive intervention. Within the dense wood, Jack, the intrepid documentarian, reviewed his notes and photographs with mounting urgency. He had captured every detail, from the shifting glow of the enchanted bindings to the tearful expression in his cub's eyes. Now he realized his work had taken on a new significance. His recordings were not merely evidence of a tragic incident, they were the clarion call of a hidden legacy and a deep injustice that spanned centuries. "We're on the edge of something monumental," he wrote in his journal, "a moment where the ancient forces of the forest clash with the modern world's indifference. The fate of this guardian and her cub is now intertwined with the very soul of our wilderness." Meanwhile, in a nearby clearing, a group of local conservationists and scholars convened in an impromptu assembly. They debated passionately over a weathered map spread out on a makeshift table, pinpointing the locations of similar ancient symbols discovered throughout the forest. One elder, whose voice trembled with a mix of reverence and sorrow, recalled old legends of a sacred ritual, one that had once been used to lift curses from nature by reuniting guardian spirits with the heart of the wild. "If we can find the lost key, the relic said to be hidden near the sacred glade, we might break this curse and restore balance," he insisted, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. His words added a tangible goal to the swirling chaos, a final piece of the puzzle that could either liberate the mother wolf or condemn her to eternal bondage. In that critical moment, the local authorities, prompted by the rising tide of public concern and bolstered by digital evidence, announced plans to intervene. A special task force was mobilized to investigate the possibility that modern corporate interests had played a role in the curse's persistence. Rumors had circulated that an influential local developer, with clandestine ties to industrial logging and technological surveillance, might be behind the mysterious tampering of the forest's ancient magic. This new angle injected a sense of urgency and danger into the already volatile situation. The prospect that human greed was not only physically destroying the forest but also corrupting its spiritual essence galvanized the conservationists into action. Back at the heart of the clearing, as the morning advanced and the spectral light on the bindings pulsed with renewed intensity, Hope's resolve crystallized. The cub's eyes, once filled with innocent uncertainty, now burned with a fierce determination born of love and the desperate need to restore her mother's freedom. In that moment, the struggle transformed from an act of simple rescue into an epic quest, a quest to locate the ancient relic, break the curse, and reawaken the guardian spirit that had once protected the forest. The convergence of these disparate forces, the mystical revelations on the tree, the impassioned debates among the community, the mounting digital and physical evidence of exploitation, and the inner turmoil of a determined cub, reached a crescendo. The abandoned wolves and the forest itself seemed to be calling out for redemption, for a restoration of balance that had been long denied by the relentless march of modernity and corporate greed. In that charged moment, every living soul present, from the tearful faces of the conservationists to the resolute expression in Hope's eyes, understood that the time for decisive action had come. The fate of the mother wolf, and indeed the sanctity of the entire forest, now hung in the balance, a balance that would soon tip either toward redemption or irrevocable loss. As the spectral light of the enchanted bindings pulsed with renewed intensity and the forest held its collective breath, the long-awaited moment of confrontation arrived. The community, local conservationists, and a small band of determined individuals had gathered near the ancient oak where the mother wolf remained bound. The air was thick with anticipation and a mix of hope and sorrow. Every whispered legend and digital clue had led to this decisive juncture, a point where the cursed bindings, the age-old symbols, and the fervent pleas of a desperate cub would be addressed head-on. Jack, with his camera slung over his shoulder and his journal clutched tightly in hand, stepped forward from the group of gathered witnesses. His voice, steady and resolute, carried across the clearing as he addressed everyone present. "Today we have reached the moment of truth," he declared. "Our investigation has revealed not only the cruel physical bindings that hold this guardian captive, but also the dark legacy behind them, a curse born of betrayal and greed, imposed long ago by those who sought to control the forest's magic. We cannot stand by while this ancient injustice continues to strip away the very soul of our wild." His words were met with nods of determination and murmurs of agreement from conservationists, local elders, and even the few skeptics in the crowd. At that moment, Emily, whose home had become a sanctuary for rescued wildlife and whose heart had always been intertwined with the forest's fate, stepped forward. Her eyes, wet with tears and burning with resolve, scanned the gathered crowd before she spoke softly. "I have come to understand that our role is not just to provide shelter, but to be the stewards of this ancient legacy. My grandmother once told me stories of a time when the forest was governed by guardians, whose spirits protected the balance of nature. Today we have a chance to restore that balance, to break the curse that has bound this noble soul for too long." Her words, deeply personal and laced with ancestral memory, stirred a profound sense of urgency among those present. In response, a group of local environmental activists, led by Carmen, presented a proposal that had been developed over weeks of research and community discussion. Carmen detailed a plan to seek out the ancient relic, rumored to be hidden near the sacred glen, a relic that, according to local legend, held the key to breaking the curse. "If we can locate this relic," Carmen explained passionately, "we may be able to unravel the curse that binds our guardian of the forest. This is not a task for the faint of heart. It will require courage, unity, and the strength of our shared resolve." The proposal was met with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Many understood that the relic could be the turning point needed to free the mother wolf, while others worried about the dangers of delving into long-forgotten mysteries. Simultaneously, local authorities, who had been monitoring the situation with growing concern due to recent reports of corporate encroachment and technological interference, announced that they would support the community's efforts with a specialized wildlife rescue team. This team, composed of experts in both animal behavior and environmental forensics, was tasked with carefully extracting the mother wolf from her bonds while preserving the ancient symbols that might hold the secret to the curse. "Our aim," one official stated in a measured tone, "is to restore the natural order without disturbing the sacred history that lies within these woods." Their assurance, though tinged with caution, provided a glimmer of hope that human intervention, when guided by respect and empathy, could indeed work in harmony with the wild. As preparations for the rescue and the relic hunting expedition gathered pace, the tension in the clearing became almost tangible. The mother wolf, despite her suffering, appeared to summon an inner strength, a regal dignity that belied her current state. Her eyes, reflecting both immense sorrow and a spark of hope, fixed on her little cub Hope, whose determined stance and trembling resolve promised that she would do everything in her power to break the curse. In that silent exchange, the true stakes of the moment were laid bare. This was a battle not only for freedom, but for the very soul of the forest. In a final, decisive moment, the community collectively pledged their support. A solemn ritual was held under the ancient oak, where elders recited blessings and ancestral prayers intended to invoke the protective spirits of the forest. These words, echoing across the clearing, were a powerful affirmation that the fight to break the curse was as much a spiritual endeavor as it was a physical one. "We stand here as one," an elder proclaimed, his voice resonant with both pride and sorrow, vowing to restore the harmony that has been disrupted by human greed and forgotten honor. With that declaration, the stage was set for a bold, unified course of action. Legal teams would file formal complaints against those responsible for the environmental exploitation that had led to the curse, while the Independent Oversight Committee would begin its search for the ancient relic that could reverse the bindings. At the same time, the Wildlife Rescue Team, equipped with advanced technology and guided by deep respect for the forest's traditions, prepared to carefully extract the mother wolf from her bonds without harming the ancient symbols that held the secret to her past. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, bathing the clearing in a soft, hopeful glow. Every individual present felt the gravity of their collective commitment. They understood that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty and danger, yet they were united by an unbreakable resolve to restore balance, honor ancient legacies, and protect the wild from exploitation. In that moment, as the forest exhaled a gentle sigh of relief, the community took its first decisive step toward breaking the curse and reclaiming the sacred trust between humanity and nature. As twilight deepened into the embrace of night, the forest clearing beneath the ancient oak pulsed with an almost tangible energy, a silent battleground where the forces of ancient magic and modern intervention were poised for a final confrontation. The mother wolf, still bound by the enchanted vines that glowed faintly with mysterious runes, and her determined cub, Hope, now stood at the center of an epic struggle. Every element of the scene, the gnarled bark of the oak, the ethereal shimmer of the bindings, and the trembling eyes of the cub, converged into a moment of peak tension that promised either redemption or irreversible loss. The atmosphere was electric as the gathered community, environmental activists, local elders, and wildlife experts encircled the clearing. They had come together not just as witnesses, but as participants in a cause that transcended the immediate tragedy. Every whispered prayer, every shared story of ancestral guardianship, and every digital post under hashtags like Break the Curse and Wild Legacy had led them to this decisive hour. The air was heavy with anticipation. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath as if nature itself was waiting for what was to come. Jack, standing near the boundary of the clearing, reviewed his notes one final time. His journal, filled with intimate details of the day's events, now brimmed with urgency. "We are standing at the threshold of a new era," he scribbled, his pen trembling with both excitement and dread. His words captured the profound realization that the fate of the mother wolf, and by extension the balance of the forest, hung precariously in the balance. Every piece of evidence, from the ancient runes to the cryptic messages received from the Guardian, had culminated in this one moment. Nearby, Officer Ryan, whose transformation from a detached enforcer to a compassionate protector had become a beacon of hope for the community, addressed the assembly with a steady voice that belied the emotional storm within him. "Tonight, we face the culmination of our efforts," he declared. "The curse that binds our guardian of the forest is not merely a chain of vines and forgotten spells. It is a symbol of the exploitation that has plagued these woods for generations. We must now stand united to break this curse and restore balance to the wild." His words resonated through the group, stirring a murmur of collective resolve as they prepared for the decisive action ahead. In that charged moment, the ancient oak, with its time-worn bark and luminous symbols, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The tree's rhythmic glow synchronized with the soft murmurs of the forest, a natural heartbeat that echoed the urgency of the situation. The enchanted bindings around the mother wolf flickered in tandem, as if the very energy of the forest was gathering to aid in her liberation. It was as though the oak itself was offering a clue. The key to breaking the curse might be hidden within its ancient, mysterious lore. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by the distant sound of approaching footsteps and murmurs, a sign that local authorities and environmental rescue teams were arriving to support the community's intervention. Their presence signified that the battle was no longer a solitary struggle, but a collective effort that spanned the entire region. Among them was a small contingent of experts led by Dr. Elena Morales, whose satellite imagery and environmental data had confirmed a disturbing link between industrial encroachment and the forest's distress. Her recent findings had added a layer of urgency, warning that if the curse was not broken soon, the destructive forces of modern exploitation would tighten their grip on the wilderness. As the rescue teams set up their equipment and began their careful preparations to extract the mother wolf without disturbing the ancient symbols, the community gathered in a tight circle around her. The energy in the clearing shifted as one of the local elders, a man known for his deep knowledge of indigenous lore, stepped forward. His weathered voice carried the weight of centuries as he intoned, "Our ancestors believed that in moments of great imbalance, the spirit of the wild reaches out to remind us of our sacred duty. This is that moment, a call for us to restore what has been lost and to honor the true guardianship of nature. His words, steeped in tradition and reverence, set the stage for what was to come. A final, unified effort to break the curse and reclaim the forest's lost harmony. In that climactic juncture, every soul present, whether human or animal, felt the magnitude of the choice before them. The mother wolf's eyes, now a mirror of ancient sorrow and nascent hope, locked with those of her cub, as if silently urging her to be brave. The determination in Hope's gaze was a defiant challenge to the forces that sought to keep her mother bound. Across the clearing, the diverse voices of the community, activists, elders, scientists, and officials, merged into a single, resonant call for justice. As the first hints of dawn began to break over the horizon, bathing the clearing in a soft golden light, it became clear that the fate of the forest rested on the actions that would be taken in these final moments. The community was now poised on the edge of transformation, a critical turning point where the ancient curse could be broken and the natural order restored, or where the exploitation would continue unchecked, plunging the wild into deeper despair. In that moment, with the forest alive with both ancient magic and modern determination, the stage was set for the final confrontation, a bold, unified action that promised to change the destiny of the forest forever. That fateful evening, as the sky deepened to a bruise of twilight and a chill wind swept through the ancient forest, the stage was set for the moment that would determine the fate of the mother wolf and her brave cub, Hope. Under the gnarled branches of the ancient oak, where the cursed vines still glowed faintly with mysterious runes, a heavy, almost tangible silence fell over the clearing. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the accumulated sorrow and unspoken promises of ages past. In the heart of that clearing, the mother wolf, bound by enchanted vines and tethered to the very tree that had become both her prison and her legacy, lifted her tear-stained eyes toward Hope. Her gaze, filled with both despair and an ember of hope, spoke silently. "Break the curse, my child. Free me and restore the balance of our sacred forest." The plea in her eyes was a poignant echo of ancient sorrow, a call not only for physical liberation, but for the redemption of a legacy marred by betrayal and human greed. Hope, the small cub whose heart now thudded with a mix of terror, determination, and an emerging sense of duty, trembled as she looked back at her mother. Every fiber of her being ached to help, yet the task seemed insurmountable. The thick, frayed bindings that choked the guardian of the forest were not only a physical restraint, but also a symbol of the curse that had stolen her mother's freedom and dignity. For a long, agonizing moment, the cub hesitated, caught between the instinct to flee and the profound, unyielding call to act. Then, as if stirred by an unseen force, a soft glow began to emanate from the ancient runes on the bindings. The symbols pulsed with a mysterious light, growing brighter and more insistent with each heartbeat. It was as though the very spirit of the forest was awakening, urging Hope to rise above her fear. The pulsating light revealed intricate patterns along the vines, a coded message that hinted at a hidden key, a relic lost to time that held the power to break the curse. In that charged moment, every creature in the clearing seemed to pause. The mother wolf's eyes shone with a mingling of agony and a fierce, almost defiant hope. "My child," her eyes seemed to say, "the key lies beneath the stones of the sacred glen, where the old river meets the heart of the forest. Only you can unearth it and free me from these bindings." The words, unspoken yet unmistakable, resonated in Hope's ears. The cub felt the weight of destiny pressing upon her small shoulders, a burden of love, duty, and the desperate need to reclaim what had been lost. Summoning every ounce of courage, Hope took a trembling step away from the base of the ancient oak. Her heart pounded as she darted toward the edge of the clearing, guided by a newfound determination. Every step was fraught with danger. The forest was dark and full of unknown perils. Yet the cub pressed on, driven by the desperate desire to save her mother and restore the honor of their once noble lineage. As Hope moved deeper into the forest, the sounds of nature took on an almost otherworldly quality. The rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of the old river seemed to form a symphony of encouragement, urging her forward. Guided by instinct and the memory of her mother's pleading gaze, she eventually reached the sacred glen. a secluded, moss-covered clearing where the air shimmered with an ancient energy. Here, beneath a cluster of weathered stones, Hope discovered a small, intricately carved amulet, half buried in the soft earth. Its surface bore the same mysterious symbols that adorned the cursed vines, pulsing faintly, as if alive with the forest's hidden magic. Hope's heart leaped. This relic was the key her mother had silently promised, a tangible embodiment of the ancient law that bound their fates. With trembling determination, she grasped the amulet in her tiny jaws and turned back, her path lit by the soft glow of the relic. Every moment felt charged with urgency. The forest, once a silent observer, now roared with the promise of change. Back at the ancient oak, as Hope returned, a heart-wrenching scene awaited her. The mother wolf, having sensed the cub's movement, stirred weakly. The moment Hope approached, the amulet began to radiate a brilliant light that spread along the cursed vines, slowly unraveling the dark magic that had held her captive for so long. With each pulsing beat of light, the bindings loosened, a bittersweet liberation that was as painful as it was hopeful. Then, in a final, shattering moment, a deep, resonant howl echoed through the clearing, one that was not born of agony, but of release. The mother wolf, freed from her enchanted bonds, collapsed gently to the forest floor, her eyes closing as if in relief. Yet, the triumph was bittersweet. The process had drained her, leaving her frail and broken. Hope rushed to her side, nuzzling her with tender urgency, as if to console her mother even as a tearful cry of sorrow and victory mingled in the crisp morning air. In that climactic scene, the forest itself seemed to weep. A soft, mournful rain began to fall, washing over the ancient oak and the tender reunion of mother and cub. The profound sacrifice and the heavy cost of liberation were laid bare before all who witnessed it. The wild, in its infinite cruelty and compassion, had given one last heart-rending lesson, that even the deepest wounds of nature can be healed, but at a price that resonates through every living being. As the soft light of early morning filtered through the towering canopy of ancient trees, the forest seemed to exhale a long-held sigh of relief. The heartbreaking scene that had unfolded at the base of the old oak, a scene where a mother wolf, bound by cruel vines and remnants of forgotten ropes, had silently pleaded for liberation, and where her determined cub, Hope, had embarked on a perilous quest to break the curse, was now drawing to a close. In the quiet aftermath, the forest bore witness to both a sorrowful farewell and the tender promise of renewal. The final moments of the struggle had been etched into the hearts of every living creature present. As Hope returned with the ancient amulet clutched in her jaws, the enchanted relic began to radiate a brilliant, purifying light. The cursed bindings that had held the mother wolf captive shimmered and slowly began to unravel. Each pulse of that mystical glow signified a step toward liberation, a painful but necessary undoing of the dark magic that had stifled the Guardian's once mighty spirit. In a climactic instant that seemed to merge agony with hope, the mother wolf let out a deep, resonant howl that signified both release and mourning. Freed from her binds, she collapsed gently to the forest floor, her eyes closing in a moment of bittersweet peace as tears mixed with the falling rain. In that final tableau, the forest itself wept. The soft patter of rain washed over the ancient oak and the tender reunion of mother and cub, as if nature were blessing the reclamation of a lost legacy. The scene was a poignant reminder of the cost of redemption, of the sacrifices required to break the chains of past exploitation and to restore balance in the wild. Every creature in the clearing, from the silent, watchful crow perched on a nearby branch to the small deer timidly observing from the edge of the woods, seemed to participate in the shared grief and hope that filled the air. For Emily and her family, who had long seen their home as a sanctuary for rescued wildlife, the events of that day had reshaped their understanding of compassion and stewardship. What began as a desperate act of rescue had evolved into a profound journey, a mission to honor the ancient ties that bound humanity to the wild. In quiet moments after the ordeal, Emily reflected on her family's heritage, remembering stories passed down through generations of guardianship and connection with nature. The revelation that the mother wolf had once been a revered protector, cursed by betrayal and greed, imbued their mission with new meaning. It was no longer merely about saving one animal, it was about rekindling a sacred legacy, ensuring that the wild remained a place of wonder and balance. Local conservationists and community leaders rallied together, inspired by the miraculous yet heart-rending events. They vowed to launch initiatives aimed at preserving the forest's integrity, including stricter regulations against industrial encroachment and more comprehensive wildlife protection programs. The formation of an independent oversight committee, comprising environmental scientists, legal experts, community activists, and indigenous representatives, became a beacon of hope for the future. Their collective mandate was clear: to ensure that the exploitation and neglect that had once cursed the forest would never again be allowed to flourish. Meanwhile, Jack, the dedicated documentarian who had captured every tear and tremor of the unfolding drama, published his account in a widely read local magazine. His heartfelt narrative described not just the tragic struggle of a mother and her cub, but also the profound transformation of a community awakened to the urgent need to protect its natural heritage. "In the heart of the wild," he wrote, "we found that even in the midst of deep sorrow, there lies an indomitable spark of hope, a spark that, if nurtured, can restore the ancient balance between humanity and nature." As the legal and environmental battles commenced, the digital world buzzed with supportive messages. Hashtags like John Wild Legacy, Break the Curse, and Forest Guardian trended across social media, uniting citizens from all walks of life in a shared cause. People posted stories of their own encounters with nature's mysteries and called for action to protect the forest from further exploitation. This outpouring of digital solidarity not only amplified the voices of those directly involved, but also brought broader public attention to the importance of preserving the wild. In the days that followed, as recovery efforts began and the forest slowly healed from the scars of the curse, the legacy of that tragic yet transformative moment continued to inspire change. The mother wolf, though weakened by her ordeal, remained a symbol of resilience and the enduring power of maternal love. Her silent gratitude, communicated through soft whimpers and gentle gazes toward her cub, became a living testament to the promise that even the deepest wounds could be mended. In this reflective period, the community stood united with a renewed commitment to honor and protect their natural world. They had learned that sometimes the most heart-wrenching struggles yield the brightest sparks of hope. The wild was not an arena of unyielding cruelty alone. It was also a realm of profound connection, where ancient legacies could be revived and a future of balanced coexistence could be forged. Thank you for joining us on this deeply moving journey of heartbreak and hope. If the story of the mother wolf, bound to an ancient oak, and her brave cub Hope, who dared to break the curse, has touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support is vital in our fight to protect the natural world and preserve its ancient wisdom for generations to come. Stay tuned for more compelling stories that celebrate the unbreakable bond between humanity and the wild. And together, let's be the voice that safeguards our natural heritage.